In a previous video, I did Nietzsche on the Overman, and now I'm going to talk about Nietzsche on the will to power. And basically, I want to start with the idea that what Nietzsche sees is the difference between man and the animal species is the ability of man to make promises. So he says that ability exists for all of us, for all men. And it's very important because the power that it's overcoming is this power of forgetfulness. And the power of forgetfulness is a very strong power for nature because it allows us to kind of put a gate around past experiences so we can recognize the moment. Otherwise, we would just sit in enjoying the past and would never recognize the moment. So promises, he says, has basically two big characteristics that are needed. One is the ability to recognize a future and time, and the other is memory. And the reason, and then the will is to make those promises. You have to have the will to make those promises. So basically, we have looked at the future and we are recorded it in our memory so that when that event occurs and the gatekeeper opens, we're able to recognize that the promise was made for that particular period of time. The other thing Nietzsche talks about is that the creative life for man, that the majority of people are kind of buried in this little parameter in the middle, this shallow parameter in the middle, and whereas the creative life and the creative people are really out at the two ends, in the peaks. And so what Nietzsche's after is his basically says that the will, which we already talked about, also needs power. And power, Nietzsche kind of associates with the idea of taking the responsibility for the promises. But the values that the person's taking here, the values that they're standing behind, are the values of honesty, moral courage, generosity, politeness, intellectual integrity, and reevaluation. So a classic example, I believe, is if you saw the movie Josie Wales, where the Native American and Josie Wales, cut hands and match their arms, and they make an agreement made in blood called agreement in iron. And Nietzsche says that, we don't really see a lot of that basically most of humanity have a very small will, maybe, and a lot of power, but what he calls, and most of those are called the cytophobias. And the other is some people have a lot of will, but really they don't have any power. And that's and he calls those basically are people with weak character and people who are immature values. And so the idea here is that the will to power is really about character. In Nietzsche's world, the will to power is about the individual who is able to stand behind their promise, even if the promise goes south on them, and to support that promise using the values that he feels are the values of that we have here on the list. Thank you.